Okay, okay, as the uh, artificial voice has said, we are being recorded. This is the another meeting, the Landmark Land Use Committee of Community Board 2 of the 18th of May, 2022. Thank you all for coming. We'll have, let's see, yes, today we have our co-chair, Daughtry Christopher. Hello, Daughtry, and she'll be taking the minutes. And we asked our presenters to speak clearly and succinctly. And if Ms. Christopher has any problems, she'll ask you to repeat any names or anything else that has to be given. I am Carlton Gordon, and I just wish to take a moment to thank Irene Janner, former co-chair, former board member, longtime everything on Community Board 2. I think most of you have heard by now that that Irene Janner has retired from the board, from all board activity, but we keep her in our thoughts and hope to, and you know, she's she welcomes anyone to drop her a line and say hello to her as well. Okay. We have, okay, thank you. Okay, just we have our, we've announced who we are, we've announced the program. We asked for, for our agenda. I think almost everybody's seen our agenda. If there's no objection, we'd like to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
And I guess we have, since I hear no objection, the agenda has been adopted. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. We also have to turn off for a moment. We have our little section that we open up to the people who are not board members, who are not committee members, just general public. Now, this is not for the presenters, but just for the general public. If they have any comments that they wish to make on the items that are coming up, this is required by the controller's office. And so I'll give a moment. Any comments from non-board members, non-committee members on the items that we have coming up? Hearing none, we will now proceed. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll proceed to we have a couple of, Landmark Preservation Commission certificates of appropriateness. And the first one is 357 Clermont Avenue, which is also known as and many of you may know very well, the Bishop Loughlin Memorial High School. And this is in the Fort Greene Historic District. And it's an application to do a lot of work through, I guess, on that particular building. They're going to be doing work on providing a ADA compliance ramp. They will be doing work as well throughout what's considered to be the courtyard of the buildings of the high school. I guess of the high school. There'll be work throughout. Let's see, yes, I have here electrical work as well, and a lot of other work concerning the facades and throughout the building. I'm trying to figure out from the description, and my immediate question is if this is the side of the high school that faces Lafayette Avenue, is that where most of the work is being done? Because we've been visiting the high school lately, well, some of us on the board, so now I have a visualization of what the high school is like, and that's the only thing I was trying to visually see where the much of the work is going to be done. But in any case, I'll turn it over to the presenters for the Bishop Loughlin High School.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the committee for getting us in front of you tonight. And special thanks to Taya, who arranged all this for us. I know that this whole Zoom and COVID period, it's been tricky, but you guys were very willing to talk to us. My name is Michael Doyle. I'm with, we're going to put up the screen right now. With me is Andy Liu, the project architect for the project. I'm a partner at Atchison Doyle Partners, who have been working with Bishop Loughlin for a number of years on the project. And Josiah Ruland is attending remotely the meeting. If I can just tell you, Mr. Chairman, we have this focuses specifically on the ramp at the courtyard. The courtyard work, which we'll look at in a minute, is approved at the staff level because it's elevated and we're not dramatically changing anything. It's paving and street furniture, removable street furniture.
Ramp, okay, repeat that again. The ramp has been approved at stamp level?
No, the upper level, the pavement in the courtyard, which is like a half story off the ground, has been approved at the staff level, and we'll show that in a moment. And then the facade of the building, we have finished a multi-year restoration and maintenance plan, which was multi-million-dollar. The school invested significantly to, probably many of the neighbors have seen the extensive scaffolding and work on it, and that's been completed and approved by the LPC. So this is a shot from, as you said, from Lafayette side, looking at the school. Interestingly, committee members, this was meant to be the main entrance to the school, and the other side on Greene was the auditorium entrance. But for many years on Clermont Avenue, the entrance has been the exit stair, surprisingly. And part of the intention is to get the building fully accessible. It's not accessible at all right now. This would get you onto the main floor to an elevator and throughout the building. And we'll go through this, and what I'm doing, I'm going to ask Andy Liu to take over and describe it, since he's right on he's the boots on the ground back here.
So looking at the existing conditions, we have on your right-hand side from Clermont Avenue, looking at the proposed bleachers and the area in which we are proposing existing bleachers and proposing our new ramp. And on your left is looking at, from the paving, looking out onto Clermont Avenue. Just to give you an idea, to your north is Lafayette, to your left is Clermont, and to your right is Vanderbilt. We are proposing removing a portion of the existing bleachers and installing a new ramp within that area.
So the red dotted area is the only new construction, so to speak, on the that is visible. The paving, the upper level that you see with the benches and the paving, that's all on the ground.
The ramp will be planted to make it seem more diminutive from the street view, but it's all the work again is confined to areas within the field, and it's not going to be increased in constructed area. We have a rendering location plan. We're just going to flip through this really quick just to give you an idea of what we're proposing in regards to
a more visual way to look at this for the
board. So this is
your co-chair as an architect will appreciate, hopefully, that we're trying to describe it as well as we can.
This is a view coming up from the ramp, looking at the paving, which is again approved already at staff level. We do have some existing lampposts that we'll show you in a bit that we are proposing to salvage, introduce electrical, and put new lights at the top just for site lighting and security.
Just as an aside, the brother Dennis Cronin, who's the president of the school, is a nut about the landscaping. These trees are existing, and an arborist is coming now that the construction is getting ready to begin, and they're going to trim these, feed these, and enhance the landscaping up there. It's a really nice little oasis. And
So this is an aerial view. These are the existing things on your left. This is the area which we are proposing this new ramp and some planting on the sides. And then we have 8 lampposts, 6 of which we are repurposing, and then 6 new wall sconces. Again, this is a aerial view showing the existing bleachers and kind of showing our
new
ramp that's very compact and as small as possible for access. We do have a couple views coming up showing the ramp and what our intentions are in regards to planting to make it look less obtrusive from the street view.
And more inviting as an entry, mainly, to be honest. I mean, we want the new entrance to be over here and not coming in the back door as they've been doing for 40 years.
And on your to give perspective, on your right side is Clermont Avenue, which is the main entrance, main street.
Most of the students enter the building from Greene Avenue or through that side, from what you're
Through
saying?
Clermont. which
Good
is on your right.
question. Right down through that chain link fence, there's the exit stair for the building, one of the stairs, and they enter there, walk up a flight to the offices, or else go where. So they have a little security desk down there. It's a very unassuming entrance.
Huh.
So yeah, so the current main entries is directly from Clermont, and that's where all the students come from Clermont into the building.
The students, as probably you know better than us, the students do hang out and on the athletic field and the bleachers after school and before school. So it's a meeting place, and it's a valuable part of the program.
So these are a couple. This is a view from Clermont Avenue showing how our planting is going to provide and kind of obscure the ramp and as well as provide kind of a more open entry sequence to the courtyard and into the building. Looking from Clermont, and then looking from Lafayette towards the school, the field, the ramp, and kind of the bleachers.
Yep.
And now going back to our lighting fixtures, the portion here from this fixture down they're all existing fixtures that we're salvaging, putting new electrical in and reinstalling on the site, 2 of which we will be recasting to match the originals. And we will also be introducing new wall lights at each entrance just to provide site lighting for nighttime. And these lights will be connected to a photo cell, which will automatically turn on at night and turn off in the morning.
And committee members, I just want to point out, go back to one of the universal renderings. The school is an independent school under the original auspices of the Diocese of Brooklyn, but it doesn't function as a parochial school or get any funding from the diocese. So they work off tuition and fundraising, and that's why it was a big ticket item to do the restoration of the exterior, which has put it in very good shape, we think. And this will just further enhance it. But the school is here to stay. They have a great student body. They're very successful, and they want to be a good part of the community, is hopefully this evidence. And just as a total aside, I can tell you my father went to this school, my late father, And my mother went to Bishop McDonald, the sister school, which is now all the alumni are tied into this institution. And that's who the courtyard is dedicated to. And it's been very good for their fundraising, frankly.
Anything else?
It's, we can answer any questions you have, but
Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, I noticed earlier, Roseanne Sinisi from the Cobble Hill Association, Brooklynites Cobble, Fort Greene Cobble Hill Association. I guess you want to make any comments? Is this one, since it's in Fort Greene?
Ms. Denise, you're on mute. Ms. Denise, could you come off mute, please?
what is that? I'm sorry.
No, they're Fort Greene.
I guess if not,
Is he on mute?
we'll ask, yeah, we'll go right to the, any questions or comments from committee members and board members.
Yes, can you hear me, Colton?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Okay. I have 3 letters from Society for Clinton Hill, the Fort Greene Association, and also from Citizen for Responsible Neighborhood Planning. They reviewed this plan, and they had no objection to it. However, their concern was the proportionality regarding the lamp to the pole, and that the lamp seemed not to comport to the character of the building, to the architectural structure. Apparently, the architectural structure is late Tudor, I believe, if you look at it. And the lamp is a later period, almost a colonial sort of lamp that's out of proportion to the pole itself. Can you speak to that?
Well, the original posts were there from the beginning and were not lamp posts. They had little crosses on the top of them. But we were hoping to use them, they're cast iron columns, and we wanted to add on to the top of it. I don't see the Tudor influence of the school. It's sort of a mixed bag of almost, it's got part deco, it's got colonial, and it's got, but we'd be the final lamp design, we could definitely discuss with them and show them. We're open to, that's not going to be a deal breaker at all. Because to be frank, we work very closely with the staff at the Landmarks Commission, but we can, the preservationist is on vacation this week, but we did not get their final sign off on the lamppost lamp, but we can definitely discuss that, because the one that might be more acceptable is the Central Park lamp, that the so-called Central Park lamp, which is sort of universally, and it's a little less period piece. And I frankly, that's not a bad comment. We could respond to that.
Okay. I think Rosario is on. I'll let her speak to the applicant.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. By and large, the 3 groups that I've actually been authorized to speak for, because the others couldn't attend and testify, felt that, by and large, this is a great application. It's going to be a real improvement. The issue with the lamppost, I'll get to in a second, but I think first this committee has to do a little bit of housekeeping, because one thing that we tried to clarify without success last week was, what is the LPC docket number for this application? Because there are 2 pending applications on the LPC docket for this address. And then there's a certificate of no effect, which I assume is the paving work that's being done right now. So we usually put the docket number on the correspondence just for ease of clarification of what we're talking about and what we're submitting to LPC in terms of the committee's recommendation. And we don't have that LPC docket number. So if the applicant could first provide that, that would be great.
I never see the docket numbers. I don't know, Taya, do you see do you get the docket numbers as part of your communications with LPC?
Occasionally, but the LPC actually prefers the street address, but I'm sure we could provide that for our historic districts. That's not a problem.
Well, my concern was that there are actually two outstanding, pending docket numbers, and we can't know which one applies to this.
Rosaria, could I correct that or explain that?
Yeah,
The docket number for the yard renovation, they called it. That's what the Landmark Commission called it, which is the paving plan on the upper level, is 22-10519.
right, okay.
That was staff level approval.
Okay, and the docket number for whatever includes the lamps is what?
What we're talking about tonight with the ramps and the ramp and the lamps, 22-10305.
Okay, great.
And they call that ramp accessibility.
Okay, swell. So the other commentary on the lamps briefly, I mean, yes, the building is an amalgamation of Tudor and Gothic and Elizabethan. And the concern with the lamps is not just with the building and the fact that the selected lamps or the ones that the manufacturer's cut sheet shows are colonial, which really isn't any of the above, but it's also the context of the surrounding buildings. Like, although it's a distance away on the north side on Lafayette Avenue, it's directly facing the Queen of All Saints Church, which is another Gothic structure, and it actually has what appear to be period lighting fixtures that probably were contemporaneous with the building. So introducing colonial fixtures, didn't really seem to be appropriate, but if you're, open to Central Park fixtures, those would certainly be contemporaneous. I mean, those were first designed in 1911, but the city kept on using them on buildings that were built throughout the early 20th century. So it's good to hear, because also the renderings don't match with the manufacturer's data on the last page. So that was basically our comment. And if you're open to modification of that, then I think all three organizations would be very pleased.
I'll tell you, because I love to talk about design. I have no problem going to the Central Park fixture.
That's great.
I think
You like the Central Park fixture.
that's a great comment from your group, and I think it would be entirely appropriate.
Glad to hear it. If you want us to write you a recommendation for LPC, we'd be happy to do so.
And we can put that fixture up right now. If Andy was pulling it out of the website, can you do that?
Yeah.
The one on the Central Park fixture, that one.
Okay, thank you on that point. Okay, now we have a couple of raised hands on my screen.
Wait a minute, are we
First
going to see the
person.
Central Park fixture?
Yeah.
Oh, if you want to see, go right ahead. Yeah, I just want to.
Okay, now there's
Oh.
that one, and there's also what the DOT calls, I think it's the B pole, which is used locally in Kyler Gore Park and also in Fort Greene Park. The design of that is a little different.
I know which one you're talking about, and we're looking.
That would probably be less Art Nouveau and more appropriate for this.
Yeah.
So are you open to that?
Yes, we're absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. We're just having trouble finding it, but I know it.
That's it on the upper left-hand corner. There you got it, yeah. That's the type B pedestrian pole. Yeah, that seems to be more appropriate for something.
Entirely appropriate. Done deal.
Great, we're happy. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to just move on to give our members a chance to comment. I have a couple of people. Next is our co-chair, Daughtry Christopher.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Just a quick question regarding the location of the ramp. We certainly appreciate the drive to provide accessibility for everyone. That is a great thing to do. The location of the ramp is justified right when you're looking at the building. The building is super symmetrical. So I'm just curious if there were other explorations of the location of the ramp
Yes, we looked at potentially providing a ramp on Vanderbilt as part of our initial studies. In the same area, in the same vein on the other side, but there was site conditions such as sidewalk vaults. We also looked at that prevented us from actually introducing this ramp structure. And that's also where the boiler room is sitting, at least in the context of the field. In regards to other possible locations,
What Andy's saying, looking at the building that from the image we had, on the left side there's a vault, and the whole boiler room extends out into the area. And just from a buildability, when we found the original drawings of the building, Daughtry, and the ramp that we did cuts exactly to the first structural beam of the ramp of the bleachers. So it was sort of a clean cut that didn't involve any more demolition than just literally saw cutting the concrete deck.
And we did look at other locations on the Clermont Avenue side to introduce accessibility. However, it became an issue of vertical grade change from the Clermont Avenue, just because it's I believe one flight of steps are 50 inches up from the Clermont Avenue up to the first floor level. So we did explore getting students into the building on all facades of the building.
Understood. Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you. Next person on my screen with a hand up is John Doe.
Alton, did you call me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. My questions are not necessarily related to the appropriateness of the lamp and the ramp. Could you give us the cost of that particular ramp installation? That's one question. The other question, again, is not related. Are you aware of other schools in the district that do and do not have ADA access? And I'm interested in the larger picture. This is not necessarily your responsibility, but ADA access is important. So are you working with a knowledge of what's going on in the community, or are you just focused on Bishop Loughlin?
Well, in answer to the second question, we are focused on Bishop Loughlin here, but I'm a trustee. I've been a trustee of two other schools, one in the Bronx and one in Manhattan, that are independent schools that serve a less affluent community, and they both have serious handicap accessibility problems. We solved one in the Bronx, and we're literally doing the one in Manhattan right now. It's a big problem in private schools, especially underfunded when it's not a public school that haven't moved towards this. But I can't speak to other schools, other private schools in the district.
Are you aware of any government funding that is available to make schools ADA accessible?
It's not available for private schools. I looked very carefully. We also went to a number of foundations, and we just finished also, and Andy is project architect on a project in Harlem, the Mount Zion Church, which we got a grant from the Landmarks Conservancy to do a handicap assist in the handicap ramp. It's not staggering amounts of money, but it was helpful. And the same on St. Ignatius Loyola Church in Manhattan, which was another landmark building. But we've been actively looking for foundations, and we found a foundation that was supportive of it. And we've been doing that and continue to do that on this project.
Mr. Gordon, when the time comes, I make a motion to approve this application with the appropriate adjustments in the lamps.
Okay, I'll put you down as the maker of the motion. We'll hold it to the side. First, I'll just ask if there are any other further comments or questions from committee members and board members. Hearing none, John Doe has made a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have several people who second. Daughtry could pick it, whoever you want. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll take a roll. Whoever wants to do the roll, Taya, do you want to do, or Daughtry? Whoever wants to do the roll call?
Karen, I can do that for you if you like.
Okay,
Awesome.
go ahead.
Okay, so John Doe made the motion, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second.
I think it was Ernie.
Yeah.
Okay, Carlton Gordon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Daughtry,
Yes.
Hazra,
Yes.
Esther?
Yes, but
Oh, Esther, you cut out. I think you muted.
I think I heard it.
I want to vote yes, but I want to just be sure about the wording about the lamps. So I guess he did. I just would like to repeat the motion. That's all, please.
I believe it was, no problem, motion to approve with adjustment of fixtures to the recommended NYC B pole type.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Flanoy
That would be yes.
and Howell
Yes.
and Johnson, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
You call my
that's
name?
900.
Okay.
Nine?
Oh, yeah, I don't think you called Ernie.
Ernest, I'm sorry, we got you as a yes because you seconded.
Oh,
them.
yes. Yeah.
You come up with 9? All right.
800, right, Taya?
That's what I thought. Yes, 800.
900.
9? Oh, well, 8, okay, 9.
Oh, because you didn't call Mr. Dew. Got it.
Okay, right. Okay, you've been unanimously approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, confirm with landmarks about the lamp and send it to a copy to Taya tomorrow.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hill.
Okay. Next one is 1 Willow Place in Brooklyn Heights Historic District. This is as many of you know or aware, this is we're bringing a modification of the application for this particular premises. At the last Landmark Land Use Committee meeting, this was the motion to disapprove the application on this one. The applicant has now asked to come back and re-present, and to modify the application on this one. They want to do some work on, they're focusing in the application on a number of things on the windows throughout. They want to do some, bring up the legalization of the porch, and also do some work on the glazing at the entrance, at the doorways to the entrances, among a few other matters. I can say that the Brooklyn Heights Association has looked at some of this, and what we'll do is that since Ms. Stanton, Judith Stanton is not available tonight, I have a few notes on it. Some of you may have seen the notes already from the Brooklyn Heights Association. I'll give a summary after the presentation of the applicant. So the applicant can now go ahead for 1 Willow Place.
Thank you, Chair Gordon. Thank you, everyone, for spending the time to look at this again. I'm going to share my screen. As you may remember from our last meeting, this is an application to to do work on an existing multifamily home, and primarily the work that's involved, as Chair Gordon said, is fenestration work, bulkhead of the roof, and rear yard fenestration, opening of windows. So let me share this. So just remind everyone, Loughlin Street and 1 Willow Place. This is the subject building on the corner. I'm gonna go full screen. This might be a little bit helpful. This is the facade as viewed from Loughlin Street. This is the facade as viewed from Willow Place, and this is the facade of the rear yard. So it's a 3 facade building, end of row townhouse. The next slide shows some historical context. This is our survey. We have a photograph from 1940, tax photograph, shows that pretty much the windows, the conditions are almost the exact same in 1980. We have some other historical photographs that were provided to us from landmarks that also show, we don't know exactly when they're from, but from the cars, probably the 50s or so. And in what's in question, as some of you may remember, was the work that we're proposing to do at the front facade, one which is we're calling like Clermont Place, the front facade here. Originally, we had proposed on making these windows shorter. We've changed that based on Brooklyn Heights Association's comments. So we're keeping the openings the exact same as before. So really the only work on this facade is to remove the fire escape that's no longer needed because it'll be a single family home. You can also see here that the bulkhead, which will be set back from the edge, and a railing for roof deck. We'll see that a little bit later. This is the existing west elevation, which is facing Willow Place. It shows the extent of the work that we're proposing to do here. What's hatched here is removable of the existing parapet wall and chimneys to be rebuilt. New openings, 4 openings, vertical openings at the end here, and then also blocking up of existing windows. Also we are planning on enlarging these openings. So basically trying to reorganize, trying to like simplify, trying to improve this elevation, make it more balanced and symmetrical around the existing original front opening to the house. We believe that these windows were added at some point when it was either converted to a multifamily, or whether, you know, it's just basically windows were added in bathrooms, etc. at some point pre-landmarks. This is our new proposed facade. As you'll see here, we're still indicating where the original windows were. These are our new windows. This window here now matches the one at the front, so it's the same size. In addition, Brooklyn Heights Association asked us to move these windows over somewhat. They felt they were too close to the corner, which we also did. And I think at this point, they're happy with this work. And in addition, they're also happy with the work that we've done, making these windows larger, removing these, and sort of creating this revised fenestration. There are comments you'll hear, Chair Gordon will share with you, that they're not fully behind the idea of reworking the parapet wall into the centralized design, and that we can get to in a little bit. As you can also see here, we're adding a fence, which I'm bringing up just only, it's not for approval, it's for discussion that's will be approved at staff level. But the next slide will show you the rear facade, and that's the reference point here. This is the sidewalk level. The fence will partially obscure the new windows at the back. However, as you'll see from a rendering we've done and some photographs, this new opening that's proposed, as you can see here, the hatch line shows the new opening. This new window is proposed. Previously, this had been full width. Brooklyn Heights Association suggested some options, one of which was enlarging this to only 2 windows. But as you'll hear from Chair Gordon, they have made some other suggestions as well with regard to this. Basically, this is an existing opening that we're going to just put a new door in, and these are basically 2 windows that get lowered, and then the masonry between them has been removed for 1 larger window. These are existing openings at the base. And here we'll see an axonometric that basically shows the scope of the work, existing, proposed. In addition, you can see here there's an existing porch that we have, since our application started, we found out that it was not approved by landmarks, and we're asking for that to be legalized. These are just sections showing sightlines. I think the important thing here is you'll see that in both locations across the street, the bulkhead is not visible from directly across the street. Here are some more context photographs with the mock-up. What you're seeing hatched up here is a mechanical enclosure, which is on the roof. That's viewed from Willow Place. Again, a distant view with a closer up view and a zoom view. This is viewed from coming up from the waterfront park, Brooklyn Bridge Park, towards the property. And what you're seeing up here is partially the bulkhead and then also partially the parapet modifications. So, and just for clarity's sake, again, coming down Loughlin Street, the subject property is at the end of this block on the left, and we're looking here at what will be visible of the bulkhead from a distance. Here is another view, view number 2, which is a little bit closer across the street, showing at a sort of 3/4 angle that even though it's not visible from straight across the street, at a 3/4 angle, you can see the bulkhead, you know, from that vantage point. This is a zoomed view of that. And as you know, described before, this will be clad in a gray metal, galvanized metal material that'll hopefully be very quiet and similar to what's happening with the cornice. Again, these images show the existing conditions plus the mock-up, and this here is a artistic rendering of the way the building will look after the windows have been changed, the fire escape has been removed, and the bulkhead is built. And we've also done the same thing on the corner across the street on Willow and Loughlin. Again, this is the existing building. What's visible up here is the line of the railing that we've mocked up. In the center here is the line of the parapet, as you can see over here, and then you can see that the second chimney in this rendering has been removed. Apart from that, obviously these 4 windows were added and these 4 windows were removed. So, and the porch is as is. And again, just for discussion of the fenestration changes, this is the existing condition viewed across the street on Willow Place, looking into the rear yard. Currently, the rear yard is very open to the street, and we are proposing to build a new painted black wooden fence, similar to ones that have been previously approved by landmarks in the neighborhood, in the district. And that will align along the property line, which is basically where the stockade fence is currently. And there will be a gate in this to give privacy to the new owners. In addition, here you'll see that new opening that we mentioned previously with 2 new light fixtures either side. This is again changed from the last time we presented, where this opening was full width. We've reduced it down to align with the outside of these 2 upper windows and just kept the existing door where it is. And then these are just some images showing what the rear yard looks like currently, just for people who haven't had a chance to get there and look at it. Again, this is a detail of the proposed fence elevation. Rushing through these a little bit because I'm conscious that, you know, we also have an additional part of our presentation to talk about context, which was something that was brought up previously. Here we have photographs on the roof showing the mock-up that's currently on site, and a roof plan showing proposed new roof terrace and bulkhead, skylight, and mechanical enclosure in this area. Everything, as you'll see, is tied up against the property line to the neighboring property to make it as least visible as possible. These are floor plans of the property, just for information's sake. I'm gonna jump because that's pretty much the end of the drawing presentation. Previously, when we discussed this, Brooklyn Heights Association had come back to us with some comments about the windows we were putting in. It's pretty much, they're fine with our reference points here, but this was the package we sent to them. Basically examples of that condition throughout the Brooklyn Heights neighborhood historic district. Again, here's another example. In addition, it's an unusual house, One Willow Place, because the entrance is on the side facade. Normally, the entrance is on the short facade, and then there's either some sort of large window, oriel window, on the long facade on the adjacent street. But in our situation, we look for some examples of houses that have the entrance on the short side to see how they were treated. And our argument really around this is try and convince, perhaps, or at least discuss the idea of making a centralized feature, as restrained as it might be, on the Willow Place facade. So here in this example on Loughlin Street, further up the street, this is the narrow facade which faces Henry, and then it's got a centralized entrance on the side elevation on Henry Street. And we're showing this to show that the roof line is not sloped. There was a comment from Brooklyn Heights Association that the roof line, the sloped roof line and chimneys were typical of our building, and this is perhaps to make an argument that there are other examples, original examples in the neighborhood that have that. In addition, we have two different examples here, to Sydney Place again, a building with a narrow facade on one street and a central entrance on the second street. Here you see two things that we're looking at. This is obviously a very grand entrance to this house, but it shows that the entrance on the side street can be a feature, significant feature to a house like this. It's not always that the entrance is on a stoop on the short facade. In addition, on this building, you'll see there's also a raised portion of parapet central to the building, although it's maybe not as symmetrical as we would want. It's still a central feature to this facade. On the left here in Loughlin Street, we use this as a reference because this is not only a facade, a rear facade that's been modified significantly, but it's also recently approved by landmarks, and it shows a condition that's, you know, quite heavily glazed. It's sort of a T-porch motif, which is somewhat typical in the area, but it's a heavily glazed rear facade that's visible from the public thoroughfare. And I guess this is also an argument that we would try and use to justify our enlargement of the opening at the rear facade. In addition, we found another couple of examples of a raised parapet on a gable elevation on the corner of Willow and Middaw Streets, also in the Heights Association, or at the Heights Historic District, and also on 49 Willow Street between Cranberry and Orange. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was the porch. So it was a surprise to a lot of people and that this porch had been installed, and we actually we assumed it was landmark approved, but it wasn't. I think that the idea of whoever put the porch in, we're not sure, looked across the street, and across the street there are houses that are from the same period but in a slightly different style. Our house is Greek Revival. The houses, you may know them across the street. They're well-known landmark houses in the area, and they're in a sort of a Gothic revival style. So their porches have a little bit of the pointed arch, the sort of tracery that maybe would not be typical of a Greek Revival. However, that was what was installed. We've talked to Brooklyn Heights Association, and they feel that there are a lot of instances where things were installed, in a period perhaps post-landmark, but Brooklyn Heights Association, or I'm not sure exactly. Chair Gordon will maybe read their comments more distinctly, but they're fine with this as far as I can tell. They just would prefer if we didn't try and emphasize that it's historically correct for the house, which we understand that to be the case. But I think that probably in the end, it may have been one of the proposals that someone would have come up with, given the fact that if they were going to design a porch for this house, given the fact that this is directly across the street. So that was those were the items: the fenestration, the bulkhead, and the porch that we really are coming for the community board again. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll give a summary of the summary that Judy Stanton sent to, I know she sent it to the board office, and I think a couple of us, I think Daughtry got it as well. There were a few things that the Brooklyn Heights Association wanted to bring to our attention. They were, I guess the biggest thing that they were concerned about, they felt, okay, I'll start with what they did not like. They felt it was inappropriate for the removal of the chimney and the and I guess the profile of the building. That's how they felt. They felt that that could be left alone. That was one of their biggest objections. They did approve of the legalization of the porch. They had no problem with it, and they support that effort. It's not so much on the windows. They felt that it was more, not that the windows were a problem. It's just, I think what they felt was that it should be looked at as the way the windows are presented, your proposal on the windows, will they fit, let's say, the historic nature of the district? And that's what I think was while they did not necessarily object to the proposal on the windows, they felt at the same time that it might not fit in that well. And also as part of the windows, there was a fourth thing, but it's more of a suggestion. What they're suggesting is that keep in mind, especially for the rear, let's say your rear or the rear of the building, is that it's not just going to be facing into the donut, but apparently this rear of Willow Place is going to be facing directly onto another building right across the way. And what they suggested is that do you want for your client to keep in mind that they will not have as much privacy at the rear, since it's going to be near this other building that's across the way from at the rear. So that's what they had suggested more than anything else. So that's my, I hope I didn't botch it, but this was what Judy Stanton had sent to us. Okay, given that, do we have any other questions or comments from committee members or board members? on this application.
Can I just jump in? I'm sorry, Chair Gordon, I don't know if it's appropriate, but the rear window does not face and does not directly face another building. It faces the end gable facade of the first building on Willow Place, but there is no windows in it. Their comment about that was the rear is highly visible. It's not part of a hidden donut in a typical block configuration. We think the owner would actually want the privacy of more modest windows. It's the rendering we showed shows how visible it is from the street. It's a diagonal view. It's not a direct view.
Okay, that was more of a suggestion than anything else, but it's a, that's what they, that's what they have wanted to bring to your attention.
Thanks.
All
I
right.
just wanted to,
Okay, all right, so if there's nothing else, I'll go to our committee members and board members. The first one I see in my screen is Ms. Ali.
Yeah, I think the applicant has, gone through a lot of trouble to correct some of the criticisms that we had in the past. And from what I'm hearing, the Brooklyn Heights Society really didn't have an objection. So, I mean, it might be premature, but I would like to move a motion to approve.
Okay, the motion's been laid, but we'll hold on for a moment. I see the next raised hand is Bill Flournoy. Bill, go ahead.
Bill, you're on mute.
Not on mute now. Okay. Mr. Mansfield, what I noticed is, I realized this was basically it was set up as a 7-unit house. Okay. It was 2 studios per floor and 1 duplex on the bottom floor. So you're basically reconfiguring this whole building, okay, to be a 1 family. So that's very difficult. Okay. Could you address what was put in the chat for the Brooklyn Heights Association? Do you see the chat?
oh, no, I don't, but let me pull it up. I see the chat.
Okay, so could you go through what the Brooklyn Heights Association, Ms. Stanton, actually said, and actually go through that and comment on each one of the things she mentioned?
Yes. So we think that the design of new windows and door openings on highly visible rear facade needs further study. We appreciate the applicant's willing to consider changes here, but the current proposal still departs too far from the historical openings pattern, does not harmonize with the unchanged upper stories. We think lengthening the windows to the floor while maintaining their existing width and masonry separation will be a better approach. Also, there are no profiles of these windows and doors, so they seem too preliminary to be ready for approval. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're actually, are you seeing that also? So,
oh yes, I see that. That's why I mentioned it to you.
So they're basically saying that these 2 windows, that they would be okay with us adding, just bringing them down to the floor level, which would be adding about 18 inches on each window to the height. And that's the only modification that they would, that they feel is appropriate. We first had this presentation 2 weeks ago. We had this window full size, and they had suggested that that we do this as a solution, that we basically take this. When we presented this, they've now asked us, they've said, no, we prefer if you just did these 2 windows. It's very, I guess I'm going to say, just obviously this is related to our project in general. It's very important to our client to, in a small house on a small lot, to try and get as much light as possible and as much greenery brought into the house. So it's very important for them to have some more glazing on the rear facade facing their rear yard. And it's also not to say that this is a reason to approve it, but it's something that's generally done a lot in these types of renovations. And it's also approved obviously a lot by landmarks. So we feel that, this solution is a compromise that we're willing to go to. I would have to obviously go back to my client and go to this at great length if we were going to reduce the changes like that. So that's number one. Number two, I'm going to read it from I have her thing here. I have Julie Stanton's email open in front of me. We are fine with the porch legalization. Let me see. Actually, no, you just, Tara. Need to. There it is there. The rear facade issue isn't just about preservation, but also privacy. Okay, we read that one. Final BHA statement. Proposed design and demolition for the top of Willow Place wall and chimneys is inappropriate. It is not necessary to change the building profile to carry out the interior and roof alterations. The applicant's preference for new design is not supported by the other buildings offered as context. Those alternative designs are original to those houses, but we don't believe they represent historical or LPC approved alterations, which would be relevant and precedent here. This building's existing roofline and chimney profile is frequently seen original design for Greek Revival corner houses and should be preserved. I'll break this up into little pieces. Basically, we showed some alternative, not designs, but the context photographs of houses original to those houses. But we don't believe that they represent historical LPC alterations. We actually do, but that there's a sticking point there, perhaps. And the existing roofline and chimney profile is frequently seen. We also believe that that's not the case. If you walk around Brooklyn Heights Historic District, you see generally the cornice line turns the corner at all end of row houses, and there is usually some detail on the end facades. So the roof line is actually atypical for Brooklyn Heights. I think in other neighborhoods, it's typically what you see when someone takes down a building and you see the exposed chimney and the exposed roof line. But usually when these buildings were built, they weren't built with a unfinished end. They were embellished. So that being said, if we're not going to, we are willing to work with Brooklyn Heights Association. If both, as you guys may know, we received their notes, only recently. So we would have to go back and look at that. But yes, we a little bit disagree on that one. So.
Yeah, I understand it, Mr. Mansfield. Like I said before, you're reconfiguring an entire building. And unfortunately, because it's so exposed, okay, a lot of those original characteristics you're looking to change them to conform to your new design.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members, board members? Hearing none, Mr. Lee has made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second from Daughtry Christophin. Are there any comments or questions on the motion?
Ms. Ali, was that, oh, I apologize for the construction noise. Was that a motion to approve as presented?
Yes.
Okay.
My comment, Mr. Mansfield, you mentioned that you would just have a discussion with the Brooklyn Heights Association. Okay, Ms. Ali, are you suggesting to accept it without consultation with the Brooklyn Heights Association or with consultation with the Brooklyn Heights Association?
Well, from what I understand, it was not a criticism of from what Carlton explained, it wasn't really a requirement other than the windows, which they have gone back and forth with the same windows. This current window he's provided was based on what they recommended before. So, I mean, what are
Turn it
they
around,
going?
actually. Yeah, let me turn it around perhaps. Mr. Lee, would you be willing to accept what Mr. Flournoy is requesting as a friendly amendment to your motion?
If it's a friendly amendment, sure.
Okay, if it's a friendly
Wasn't a
amendment
friendly-
from Mr. Flournoy.
Wait a minute.
Wasn't a friendly amendment. Wasn't a friendly amendment. I was just asking a question.
Well,
All right, it's not
I
amendment.
understand. But I don't see that they have a reason to have a further dialogue because they already recommended the applicant to fix the windows the way he has. And now they're having a different suggestion. Look, these
I
things
agree.
cost a lot of money and time.
I just wanted it for clarification. That's all.
Sure, I really would like it to be approved as is.
And that was my second, as presented.
Mhm.
Let's present to the, okay. And any further comments? Hearing none. Okay, I guess whoever, either Taya or Daughtry wants to do the roll call.
Gotcha. I have Ali as a yes.
Yes.
Ernest Augustus,
Yes.
oh, Esther, can you,
It sounds like you're on mute.
Oh, but I didn't hear her call my name. Okay, yes.
thank you. Starfin was the second on the motion as a yes. Mr. Du,
A very complicated yes.
Lanoy,
Mr. Flournoy will go along with the co-chair and chair.
okay, Gordon,
Did you say me? Yeah, yes, yes from Carl, yes.
Brian Howell,
Yes.
Karen Johnson. Oh, I believe we lost Karen. That's okay. So that's
So we lost it to her kid. All right, I don't think
That's-
it's it.
0-0. And I just,
I come up with 800.
I appreciate
Okay,
applicants going back and forth with the BHA. It was pretty extensive. Thank you.
okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Mansfield. You got your.
Thank you very much.
You got your approval.
Good luck
finally.
to
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Next is chair's report, but I don't have anything to report on this time around. So I guess we'll just hop right over into the district statement of needs. And when Taya, whenever you're ready, you wanted to do a opening on the statement of needs. I think almost everybody here has had some experience in talking about statement of needs, but go ahead, Taya, you got it.
Sorry, I'm gonna make this, I just closed the window. There's a land use approved construction project going on across the street from me. Thanks, guys. I'll make this super brief, partly in celebration of the incredibly early hour. We're never done this early, and because I think you all know most of this. 1 second. Can you hear me? It's still pretty loud over here. Even better
Very
reason.
well.
Make it super fast. Here we go. Okay, so I just wanted to review the basics. And actually, your newest member isn't here tonight, so hopefully she'll see this on the YouTube. Okay, so the reason that I think the office gets so excited about the statement of district needs is because it is the one time of the year where everybody in the city, all of the powers that be, actually have to listen to the community boards. It is a city charter mandated annual duty for all 59 of the community boards. And this visual is just a reminder that we are truly the center of the universe. I'm sorry, here. But also that all of these requests have to be focused on this little chunk of geography out of all 59. And the audience is substantial. The elected officials are required to review and respond. The city agencies use these requests to prioritize their service delivery and capital investments. And DCP uses this to plan and prioritize neighborhood land use and policy development. Just to ground us in the timeline, because the timeline is actually not very friendly to the citywide community board schedule, which is on summer recess for 2 months in the middle of this process. So just a reminder that you only have the May meeting, the June meeting, and the September meeting to completely finalize this committee's requests. But that means that in those intervening 4.5 months, you can submit all of your requests outside of the committee so that your committee can finalize them at the September meeting. The final committee requests have to be complete on September 29th, which is the day after the YECA meeting, which is the last one that month. And then the 30th through October 11th, the full board will do the voting on the survey that you've done for the last 2 years, which seems to be working very well. The general board ratification is at your general meeting on October 12th. And then the district office has about 2 weeks to submit what ends up being about an 80-page document. In the last 15 years, CB2 has only not submitted once. So hopefully we'll get another one in this year. Earlier this week, I think when I shared tonight's agenda, I shared 2 links. They will not be visible to any members of the public that are watching this. They are only for the board. I'm just going to talk about 2 links. I've been trying to make this process smaller and simpler every year. So this first link, tiny.cc/SDNBR, I know that everyone doesn't like spreadsheets. So I'm just going to very quickly review what's in this spreadsheet so that if you ever want it, you know where to find it. We're going to go over the 2 items circled at the bottom and these 3 items in orange. Okay, so included in that 101 document, descriptions of what is a capital budget request. Capital budget request, because you can only submit in one of 2 categories, capital budget request or an expense budget request. A capital budget request is typically a one-time expenditure of more than $50,000. And the rule of thumb is that it should have 5 or more years of future public use. So the shorthand for that would be land, buildings, or equipment. The other category is expense budget requests. That means that you're asking for something to come out of the city agency's regular routine operating budget. It's typically an ongoing expenditure, something under $50,000, and it's something that you want immediate implementation. There is a great deck in that spreadsheet prepared by OMB and DCP that is called Tips for Strengthening Submissions. In other words, if you are frustrated about your requests being denied year over year, please review this. Some tips about narrative. Is the text ready to be published publicly? Can it be understood independently without any further explanation from the author? Does the text clearly describe both the need and the proposal? And what they mean by that is there enough data? Is the context correct? Is the request specific to the geography of the district? Number one reason for requests to be denied is because they're bigger than the district. The district can't decide on citywide issues. Is the request directed to a specific and appropriate agency? They want to know that we have done the work of assessing which agency actually handles the problem that we're trying to solve. Okay, this looks like a lot of information. You don't have to read it all. What I just want you to notice is there are 7 categories here. And these 7 categories do not match the topics of the 6 working committees of this particular board in an interesting way. So these are the policy categories that the Department of City Planning uses. So I'll just cover the 7 topics. Healthcare and human services. So there's no environment in there. We've got infrastructure, services, and resiliency, which we don't really have. This is probably the closest to you, housing, economic development, and land use. Bill, good thing you're on both of those committees. Parks, cultural, and community facilities. Parks and Recreation Committee Chair Barbara Zoller-Gringer did a pretty extensive review of the other Brooklyn community boards and noticed that this was actually more aligned with other community boards as well. Public safety and emergency services and transportation are separated, whereas in our board, it's one committee. And then finally, youth education and child welfare. So this one's pretty close to ours. So just to keep that in mind. Oh, and this is important. So they specifically request in the planning documents, try not to submit requests that fall into the category of other. And again, it's because the district cannot make requests for citywide initiatives in this particular document. So that's why, it wouldn't be appropriate to direct a request to the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice because we can't make we cannot receive a change in criminal justice that only impacts the district, right? That's a citywide issue. Okay, data, that's the most important thing. Is the request verified? How do you know it's actually a problem and you don't just think it's a problem? Is the proposal you're suggesting viable? How do you know? Do you know because there are good examples from other districts where it's been implemented? Do we know because it's some blue sky idea in a different city that has been implemented? Does the proposed idea solve the need? How do you know? And again, all of our requests need to have far more numbers and data than they usually do. Stakeholders. So we don't do a lot of this. In this committee doesn't often have guest speakers, but there are other committees where the opposite is true. The agendas are almost entirely guest speakers and no board actions. So how do we leverage all of those speakers and all of the knowledge that they're bringing to our committees? I would highly recommend we are allowed to submit letters of support with our statement of district needs. So if a really compelling speaker has come to your committee and shared a whole bunch of interesting information with you, we should ask them to write us a letter of support for the idea that we're proposing in our district requests. Okay, how do we make this simple? So I've come up with two different forms of what I'm calling Mad Libs. And I know John Dew's already heard this because he's already completed two, which makes me really happy because that means that it's easy and the explanation made sense. So if you go into, again, I sent two links. The first link takes you to the spreadsheet. If you like spreadsheets, if you like working left to right in this format, go here and just type right into the spreadsheet. You're welcome to. It's going to ask you, what's your name? Is it a capital or expense request? Which city agency are you requesting a budget allocation from? What is the specific location? What is the problem? Name the problem. Just finish that sentence. What is some data that verifies that the problem exists? And when I say data for this section, that could be as easy as a newspaper article from a reputable publication that was published in the last year that explains this is a problem, right? What is the result you want to see? Should be one sentence. Is there any data or policy history that supports the proposal? And finally, who can we ask for a letter of support for the idea? If you don't like spreadsheets, here's option 2. Go to the second link. This is going to pull up this Google survey, and it actually takes you through the exact same questions, and your responses will be automatically entered to that spreadsheet. Okay. The reason I really like this form for everyone, even if you love spreadsheets, is because that you can do this on their phone. So you can fill this in whenever you have a great idea, when you're on a commute, when you're waiting in line, when you're having your morning coffee, whatever else you're doing, whenever you do your best thinking. And then just ending with this timeline. So do not put this off. Start putting your requests in. Hopefully by June, you'll have a significant body of ideas to discuss, because then over the summer recess, theoretically the staff, that is the time when the staff would be able to do research and outreach for those letters of support. I will do the best I can, but it's probably going to be a lot of DIY this year. Because in September, your very first meeting back, you have to be ready to finalize your committee's final choices. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tay. That's a lot. So what we have to do is to try within the parameters that you've laid out, and I think it knocks out some of the stuff that I was thinking about. But still, I think we still try to come up with ideas, if possible, especially for in our particular neck of the woods in the housing and land use areas, of things that we can propose. I was chatting with Daughtry a little bit about this beforehand, just by email, just because, again, looking at Daughtry as I would say as an active consumer of the various, I guess, protocols and agencies and the work of the agencies. This is the work that I know that you do, Daughtry, particularly all the time. And perhaps perhaps you can, and others as well, can focus upon what things that we can, come up with. Capital is going to be very difficult, but maybe there's something that we can come up with. And on the expense side, the expense budget, it's $50,000. We're really limited, very, very limited as to what we could propose, but perhaps there are things that we could still propose for city agencies to take a responsible, let's take responsible efforts to help us out. Okay. Are there any other comments? Because Daughtry has her hand up, and go right ahead, Daughtry.
I really just have a question and a comment. My question is, and I apologize if I'm not clear about this, but are we allowed to have these conversations regarding our district needs outside of these meetings? Via email and via telephone calls? Somebody needs to answer that, and then I have a comment.
Great question. Yes, because this is completely internal committee work, and there are no votes taking place, right? So you could not, the part that you have to do in committee is prioritizing and eliminating to get to your final 13, right? That has to be done in a public meeting where the public can contribute. But the brainstorming part, all of that actual task-based work that doesn't involve any members of the public or any decisions being finalized, that can be done outside of committee.
Excellent. Thank you, Taya. So my comment is just.
Can I add one thing, Tay? Okay, it cannot be a majority of the committee members. It has to be a minority of the committee members. So if the committee is 12 people, you can't have 7 people in conversation.
Wait, why? We're not having.
I think you can go one-on-one with each other. You can say, hey, I have an idea, you have an idea, just exchange your ideas.
It can't be a quorum, a full quorum of the committee members. Okay, that was mentioned by the overall chair. Okay, Chair Singletary does not want to have more than the majority of the individuals on a committee discussion is offline.
I believe that comment was made in relation to subcommittee work. I don't believe that was related to statement of needs specifically, but that is definitely a good point to clarify at the executive committee meeting on Monday.
Right.
And we could ask our parliamentarian too.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
So a couple of action items. One, let's ask the parliamentarian about whether we're allowed to talk as a group, because I really feel that the only way that this work gets done is if we communicate outside of our meeting times, particularly based on the schedule that you have presented. And that's all. I was going to volunteer myself or something, but I'm going to not do that at the moment till we get the answer.
Always be careful what you volunteer for.
Oh, I know.
Okay, John Doe has his hand raised.
Yes, I had a couple of items that I just wanted to throw out to the committee. I guess I'll have to put them into the chat tonight.
John, we're losing your audio again. I'm sorry.
John, turn off your video.
Video is off. Can you hear me better now? Okay, tomorrow, the Transportation and Public Safety Committee is going to receive an application to convert Skirmahorn into a one-way street and install a bike lane that will eliminate all of the sidewalk parking for the 84th precinct. This is an ongoing issue in Community Board 2 for 20 years. Back in 2004, the Community Board, as a community benefit, asked for a parking lot for all of the agency vehicles for the multitude of government agencies we have downtown Brooklyn. It was initially accepted, and then years later, it was removed. It was going to be under the Duffield Street Park, which you all know is currently under some degree of construction, with some controversy regarding the Abolitionist Plaza Building, 227 Duffield. In any event, that underground parking lot of between 200 and 400 cars was eliminated. And with it left the opportunity for us to get all of the government vehicles off of the streets and plazas of downtown Brooklyn. That problem now remains and is highlighted with this request that the Transportation Committee is going to entertain tomorrow. So, committee, is it appropriate that we request again parking be provided for all of the government agencies in downtown Brooklyn by the city of New York, but specifically for the 84th precinct? Because police officers cannot be made to walk the streets and park their cars locally. It's a danger to the police officers, which is why they park around the precinct. It's a land use problem, even though it's going to come up tomorrow in the Transportation Committee as a conflict between the bike lanes and the need of the police to be able to park around the precinct.
It's
Is
something to
there
consider.
any comment about that?
I'll just say it's something that can be considered. It sounds like it'll be a capital item as opposed to an
Yes.
expense item. But that's something that can be considered to define property and to build on that property to provide what you have suggested. But that's something that I think, yes, that can be considered as something that this committee could consider.
Well,
Are
and
there any
let me
other-
just add, Mr. Gordon, we talk about
Yeah.
finding property. The fact is, we could take the construction of any building in downtown Brooklyn that's proximal and apportion it where there's an area for the cars to park. So the city could actually, you got to think out of the box when you have these kind of constrictions, certainly land use. So any building that goes under construction can be apportioned so that a portion of it is parking for government vehicles. Doesn't have to be an exclusive building.
I think this could engender a robust conversation, to say the least. I think people have different opinions about that, myself included. I think, though, if you would like to, in the district needs, to Taya's point, if we can articulate a specific motion or a study or something that could provide the data to support something like that, we could certainly look at it. But I think I don't think the committee can say anything about that right now, as a committee at least. But if you put it in the district needs, we'll talk offline about it.
Yeah,
Well,
I think it's true that there's probably a need for this, but it has to be, if you can verify it, and if it can be verified, because, Taya's laid out the limitations that we have, but if it can be done, yeah, that's something we can maybe work with and maybe push
While
for.
I don't have a number of the government vehicles, I don't know that that's ever been done for all of downtown Brooklyn. I have the article that I recently distributed that talked about the conflict of the 84th precinct cars parking in what is proposed to be the bike lane that's going to be on Clermont Street. And from a time-wise perspective, I don't know how that's going to be resolved if the bike lane is approved and installed. What happens with the 84th precinct officers' vehicles?
Mr.
Or
Gordon.
they, yes, go ahead. Let's give Bill Fournoy a chance.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Gordon, just using this as an example of how to address something like this. Okay, so right now, Mr. Du just gave a need for a situation to within the district. Okay, so we know there's a need for it. He has a letter which basically backs up that need, okay, publication. Okay, now we need to know what the solution would be. The solution in this particular case is he's saying that we should have parking underground in a building within locality of the police station, so they prevent them from walking the streets. So that would then mean that we would have to have a property that's in the immediate area, okay, of the precinct. Is there a property within the immediate area of the precinct? Yes or no? If there is not, then that's a problem, okay, because his solution does not have a viable answer. Okay, now if there is a viable answer, then we go from there. Okay, there is currently a lot that's available. What we would then say is a capital need, so forth and so on. Okay, so we would basically go through the entire process step by step. There is a need. Okay, there is something that backs up that need, which is the article that was currently published. What is the solution that we're looking for? One sentence. Okay, and that solution would basically be a situation where the police need to have parking that is safe and secure for them within their immediate vicinity.
Thank you,
Okay,
Bill.
and then we'd have to
I
need
see-
data to support that. And unfortunately, currently right now, unless we do the research, I don't see any data supporting that. So Mr. Du, you would have to do some research to find the data that would lend a solution to this problem.
And Mr. Flournoy, I'm assigning you to do that research.
Sir, I have my own committee to deal with.
Well, let's see what happens. Ms. Ali has her hand up.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking that a lot of the city agency tend to park near where their office is, like along Court and part of Girolamo. There's parking for Borough Hall and for the DA's office and for DOT. So, I mean, it's complicated to have one central parking lot when these officers for that specific agency need to park near their place of business. So I don't know that one parking lot is a good solution. Because some of these people need to jump in the car and just get going. If, like, for instance, if detectives from the DA's office need to go somewhere, they need to park near to that area around the Marriott. And some of them park on Court, some park on Girolamo, which is a similar area where DOT people park because they are on Girolamo in the municipal building. So having one precinct, one parking lot to cover all the city agency, I don't think it's a plan that will work.
Well, Hazra, it's an idea. You can decentralize the parking lots. I said one parking lot because that was the original plan. One parking lot on the Duffield Street. We are now 18 years later.
Let me ask this. Could we then proceed at, maybe this is outside of our purview, could we then speak to different parking lots and work out an arrangement with them where they give 4 or 5 off-street parking to the different city agency? So then
Hazra,
the city
This is
agencies are
part
not
of-
on the street?
that's
Okay,
another
well,
solution.
yeah.
The goal is to get parking for the agencies, but right now we're going to have to deal with the 84th precinct almost immediately. And so we don't have any kind of solution. However, if we could come up with a parking lot that was proximal to the 84th precinct, the city needs to get to negotiate.
Yeah, but they're on Gold, right? Is that's where the 84th is, on Gold Street?
That's correct. Yes, over right by the, actually
Tillery and
more
Gold.
like a Tillery going,
Yeah.
and where the BQE,
Right,
you
right,
know,
right. That's very
And
right
just
over
Park
that way.
Avenue, yeah, near to Park
Yeah.
Avenue.
right underneath where the BQE becomes elevated, and you get that big thing.
That's a real skinny
heading up-
street and the cops park sideways,
Yes.
halfway
it's
on the
not
sidewalk and halfway on the
Right.
street.
Right.
And that's right by the part of the Housing Authority projects as well.
Mm.
And some of the new residences that have come up
Well, we
as
could
well.
talk,
in the
it's
district.
near to where Apple has a lot of buildings, so maybe he could you know, donate some spots in his buildings
Well-
to the precinct.
Who knows? So that's a good fantasy.
Guys, I have to leave, so let me just say goodnight.
All right,
since we have
well,
nothing
thank
to
you.
vote
And,
on.
all right, thank you. We're just about
Night,
wrapping
folks.
up. Okay, and Daughtry
Audra, are
has her
you going
hand
to
up
get
again.
dinner for the committee? No?
Yes, she already left. She went out to get it for you, John.
She went-
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
I just have a
she will
quick question
deliver it.
about, I don't think, and please confirm, that this process allows for policy recommendations. Is that correct?
Correct. One thing we haven't done with this committee, which we could if you want to, we can review the responses from FY23. There were several specific circumstances where the response was, this is not a budget request.
Taya,
So we cannot suggest,
I'm also,
John, I
just-
came back
let me
on.
just ask-
I hear-
yeah, let
I
me just
heard
ask.
John was saying my
Taya
name.
then.
John
Yeah,
wants
yeah.
dinner.
Hajra,
Yeah.
we thought you were leaving early to get dinner for the committee.
No, unfortunately, no. I'm helping plan something at Gracie's mansion, and I'm on overload right now. It's on the 30th of June. We don't have a lot of time. All right, folks.
Have a
Good night.
Have a good night, Mr. Lee. But I just wanted to ask Taya, so can or cannot suggest policy recommendations as part of the statement of needs, policies that would be of benefit to the district?
You can, but there are 3 examples where the agency response is simply, this is not a budget request, which is fair. The title of the document is Statement of District Needs and Budget Requests.
All right.
So
That
Taya,
clarifies that.
I
Taya,
would say don't waste one of your 40 requests on that.
Taya, can you provide the committee with some examples of how a community board, preferably community board 2, has submitted a capital or budget request that has been satisfied and the timeline?
No, she has a whole bunch of them already. They're listed.
Yes, they're all here. So
Okay.
let me
No,
let me
I don't
just
know.
do something sort of funny for just a second. So I know you can't read this, and I know that this is just a blur of colors, and I'm doing this on purpose. So I color coded last year's agency responses. Bright, sunny, happy yellow means they said yes. There's a lot of yellow. Bureaucratic blue means that they said maybe ask mom.
Yeah, they want more information.
Right? Red means no, not that many hard no's. Green are the ones that you should pay the most attention to on this spreadsheet, because green says action or revision is required. So that means it's possible if you make the request better. And then purple is also interesting to pay attention to, and this color code is up here for you all. Purple is interesting because it says, we don't hate this idea, but you're asking the wrong person or the wrong agency. Or in some cases, this is not managed through this budget process. It is managed through this budget process. Go see this resource. So I definitely recommend reviewing last year's responses. It's a great, I mean, if nothing else, that's probably the best way to learn, is by getting, comments on the homework.
So
But
are
Taylor-
you recommending that we go through this report either as a committee or individually and submit our comments on the areas that you just indicated?
Yes, and if the committee has the stomach for it, I really recommend doing it right now because your docket next month is going to be way too full to even look at this. You have a ULURP and a potential PDC review and at least 3 certificate of appropriateness. So I think right now would be a great time to go through this list. If anyone needs help just navigating this spreadsheet, John, you know, you can always call me.
So when you say right now, you don't mean at this moment?
I mean, right now at this moment, because normally your meeting would go until 9 o'clock.
Well, let's
All
take
right.
one. Can we
Yeah, can I ask
take
you a
one of
question?
them and
Can I
see
just-
how
Can I
it's?
can I just jump in real quick, John?
Sure.
Real quick question. Teo, in some of these, it talks about reaching out to public officials.
Yes.
Okay. How do we go about doing that? I mean, is that technically a statement of public district needs if they're saying that we should reach out to a public official
Here's a
for
good one.
financing? For
Uh,
financing.
It depends. And another resource, which is included in this 101 tab, that's really good for figuring that level of detail out is the Independent Budget Office, which I know, Bill, you've heard me mention them many, many times. This is a good example. So the area under the elevated BQE needs repair, mill and repave the parking bays, et cetera. The agency response was, please contact the borough commissioner with the specific locations of concern, because the agency requires additional information from the CB regarding this request. Please reach out to the Brooklyn Borough Commissioner's Office to discuss specific locations. So one way you could read that is that it's not a no in any of the 3 categories in which they could have said no. And it may imply that they might have been willing to discuss this before the fiscal year starts. So keep in mind that your requests that you're submitting in October or September really are for fiscal year 24, right? Which doesn't start until July 1st, 2023. So in some cases, some of these requests are not long-term requests and they may be able, you know, like we say with the applicants, it can be approved at staff level. That can also be true for some of these requests.
So are you
So,
suggesting
and-
that we reach out to the staff level per se?
Right, because for example, this is not something that would necessarily go into a citywide budget because it's really essentially about a roadway maintenance issue. I mean, this could almost be a 311 report.
I was going to
Okay.
say, why can't we put entire before the word BQE, and that covers the entire elevated BQE?
That would have made this a much stronger request. And so I would advise you to look at this document, tips for strengthening
Well,
submission.
you already got one suggestion.
I'm trying to find
All
one.
right, I think
I'm trying to find one
I
that
think we've-
was submitted by land use because you don't have that many. So maybe we could just focus on those.
handful of things, yes.
Was
I
this-
think we've covered okay, I'll say.
Item
I
1
think
and
we've
item
covered
3
a lot.
are land use.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I would
Item
say
1
we've
Mr. Gordon, I understand that there's not much stomach for this tonight, but just this committee in particular is really going to have to do a lot of these requests offline in between meetings because I promise you, you're not going to have time to do this at your next in June.
Exactly. No, no,
You
no,
don't
no.
meet in July or August. And
Yeah,
September, you have
absolutely.
to
So
vote.
I
Is it
agree, and I
possible
think
for
what
you?
we,
Is it possible for you to separate out the specific ones that you believe we can work on independently and get to you by next month? If we don't want to do it tonight?
I could do that. The reason I don't recommend that, it's very important to me, and actually, since there's no one left here, for what it's worth, I usually leave my camera off because the Zoom recordings prioritize my face because I'm the Zoom host. And I just would remind the board, you know, I'm not an appointed member of this committee or the board, and I don't vote. So I don't feel comfortable prioritizing for you. I'm just here to help you with the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but we're authorizing you to prioritize so we can
All right,
get
I
it
think
done.
Okay, I think
John, I'd be happy to
you
spend
have,
time just to talk with you. Because I
Okay.
think, I understand that the spreadsheet is hard to navigate. So I'd be happy to set up some time to work with you. Maybe that's a good next step. If the land use committee would like to have, and this would certainly not be a meeting, anyone on the land use committee would like to have an offline discussion just about the process and reviewing what is already presented from last year, I'd be happy to set that up as a meeting.
Mr. Gordon, I think we ought to take Taya up on her offer to help us. 'Cause the more.
I'm so sorry, John, but you're still cutting out.
why,
John, we can't hear
I think,
you.
I think the best way to do it is this. If you have
Turn your camera off.
ideas,
Oh, there you go.
if you have some ideas, something you think you think you have something that fit in the categories that Taya has laid out, leave a message or contact Taya. And if there's something that you can develop so that in June's meeting, we have a good proposal that can go through the statement of needs, I think that's the best way to do it. I'd like to move on just to finish up. I think we've lost quorum, but I'd still like to finish up everything. We've discussed that. Open business. I think we've discussed a lot of open business. I do see one person for any as open to the community. Is there anything that anyone who's not a board member, who's not a committee member, wishes to discuss? Hearing none, I do know that I'll just ask Esther Blunt, how was Turkey? Hope you enjoyed your trip to Turkey. Other than that,
It was
we're
absolutely fabulous. I would go to Turkey tomorrow if I could. I spent 2 weeks
Okay.
there and it was fabulous. I did the hot air balloon too.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, wonderful.
Esther, next time get a ticket for 2.
No, next trip is Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to Vietnam in
Yeah.
October.
I had the opportunity,
That's like
but
that Spike Lee movie. You gonna go for the gold?
No.
All right,
Mr.
so
Chair, can we close the meeting?
At this time, yes, if no other further business, anything else, we ask to wrap up. And I thank everybody else. Thank everyone who stayed around. I had a good discussion. If you have ideas, send them to Taya. If you want to CC me, that's fine. And let's, if we don't have anything that really works just as well, but thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Great
night.
job.